All right. Hi, everybody. I am here with the latest person voted off of Online Survival for the Blind Side. The Blindsided Jason. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. All these months later, it's still kind of settling in with that blind side. So I'm doing
Is
good.
it?
Definitely better than I was last night when I first watched it.
Well, before we get to this episode, I want to start going way back to the first round of Legends because you all really clicked. Honestly, why do
Absolutely.
you think that was?
Well, to be honest, if I could go back to that first episode, I wonder if somebody, even one person, would have come out a little more mugsy and been like, bad attitude. Hey, you're going to get what you get out of me, and that's all we're going to do. But it seemed like from that first moment, as opposed to somebody being kind of out there, everybody was a little bit reserved. And that resulted in everybody feeling like, I think I can trust this person, even though I don't know them. And I'm not going to be the one that steps out or does something wrong because everybody's just so nice and so sweet. And it kind of clicked that way from moment one, especially with like Rita and Emily. And Dom is very calm toned in speaking. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to show my hyper side quite yet. I'm just going to sit back. And then we all got comfortable with each other. And it just seemed to be working, until the twists start turning.
Of course. Watching the show back though and seeing the other team being the opposite of your team,
Right.
how was watching that?
It was even more entertaining than I anticipated it was going to be when we were live doing it, because all we could hear was rumors. And then you would see it a little bit in the challenge that happened right from the get-go. And then rumors just start flying like, you wouldn't believe what it's like over there. And you could feel that it was different, even though we'd never met or had any interaction with any member from there. You knew that that's what it was. And I thought that made, as we're watching it, for just great television, two polar opposite teams. And who knows what's going to happen when they actually end up together. So it was awesome. I think it's really cool.
You and Susan specifically did see that in the challenge, the first challenge. What gave that impression of the other tribe?
I think it had a little bit to do with the celebration that was going on as we were losing. Like you could tell there was some attitude over there. And even when a round was, I think we won one, or it was really close at one time, and they were already finger pointing like that. Like the attitude was that could have went better, or you just felt there was a different. It wasn't, hey, let's get the next one, it's going to be great. It was more, I hope you don't screw up again, because it could be the end for you if this goes bad. And so there was just a feeling there. And at that time, like you said, we were all getting along really well. And as we've seen now with the episodes airing, it was not the same story on the other side. So really, it all made sense. How Susan and I seen that, maybe it just stood out, but it turned out to be kind of true.
Now, the podcast has talked about this, specifically Mike has talked about this. When you, or he's blaming you, when you voted Riazo to do the task, do you remember why that was?
I believe that I was already coming to the end with Riazo. And in fact, I've had to think about the part where I tell Rita, I wanted you to choose that. And what that was Rita and I had discussed privately that she's a great leader and she should be the one leading. And that's me kind of trying to push that, because I know how that can end really quick if it doesn't go well. But I'd already started to see in Riazo, at least I thought till I've now started watching the actual series, that he wasn't invested in it. He wasn't interested at the time. And so I thought in that moment, because he was kind of saying, I want to do this, I want this to be me to do it, that maybe this was the turning point for him. And if that worked well, then I wouldn't have reservations about him anymore as much. And this would be a moment for him to, hey, I am here, I am really doing this, but I got a busy life and I'm going to get to you guys when I can. And I think it was just my way of, hey, let's let this guy have a chance, because we had started to form that group of 4. And somebody was either going to be part of that, or somebody was probably going to be on the outside of that. And at that time, Susan and Riazo were kind of in the same boat right there. There were reasons to wonder about each of them. And we were all still feeling each other out and seeing how it would go. So I thought that was like a moment for him to say, if this is a good thing, hey, Riazo. And I liked Riazo. I really enjoyed talking with him. And I said it multiple times. His age to me was something that I felt like he's going to be able to offer some quality things in these games that are going to help us as a group. So I was pulling for him.
We'll definitely circle back to Riazo, but I want to discuss when you and Rita talked about the little 4-person alliance. That wasn't actually what you seemed to want. You wanted to keep it more you and Rita, right? But then Rita kind of went and made the whole
made it even bigger. And I even said that in one of the confessionals that you can only have such a big group because at some point you got to start cutting there. And so I thought at the very beginning, especially with Rita's personality and mine, if we could, even if we coerced one person to be with us, now we've got 3 in a group of 5, 6. And as that would have progressed, I think that would have really helped. But then Rita started saying, well, should I tell Dom? Should I tell? And then the idea of, well, I'll have one and you have one, and that could be your additional. Well, that kind of made sense. So it wasn't anything to argue or say, no, let's not do it like that. But I certainly wanted to keep it a little bit between me and Rita. But I had the same connection with Emily, and I felt like I could trust Emily from the very, very beginning. Even before I'd gotten to know Dom, Emily was somebody who was like, boy, if she's the one that backstabs me here, I'm a total misjudgment of character because everything about her seemed sweet from moment one. So I was happy to just get along with all of them. And it wasn't even about who could we double cross, who could we do this to. Yeah. It was kind of just getting to know who was really there for the right reasons at that time.
Now you mentioned it. Riazo really did go from 0 to 100 because on your tribe, he was at the gym, in the dark. But watching him go to this other tribe and really hit the ground running, how do you feel?
That episode, we'll I'm sure get there, but there were a couple things within that episode that just made my jaw drop to the floor. And Riazo was hands down the number one. The episode where he flips over to that team where we're confused as to whether or not he's even playing. It was my belief that we were calling it different terms, but he just decided that he wasn't going to do it anymore. So watching it and seeing that not only was he still participating in it, he was a main character over there. And I mean, he was pulling strings everywhere. It was genius. I was really, really impressed with Riazo. And it kind of goes to the misjudgment of character. If I could go back in time, I would say that's the guy I want to team with because I don't want to be on the opposite side of him because what I've seen, what he's done, he was handling some business that none of us knew about. I believe for me up to this point, well, of course, I've got my own moment that happened yesterday, but for me to this point, that was the moment of the series because however it was done, the timing of it with Darstar was so perfect. I reenacted it on the thing, but for Darstar to say, we have a problem, and you just see the peace sign pop up, and it's Riazo floating in there. And it was like, the only time I got to see him, he was on a basketball court or in the dark with a fan going on, but somehow the peace sign come up at the perfect moment, and there's a guy saying, hello, I'm the problem, and it's about to get worse for you. It was just perfect television. The reaction from everybody watching it was great. That was a really good moment of television, period.
Now, the other side of that twist was you all got Typhon after he was voted off of that team. Was it just because y'all were so close that you didn't give Typhon a chance?
Is 100%. And going back, I can, especially as we started to watch things, I can remember exact conversations because I'm doing, as I'm sure you can guess, a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas. And I go back to that episode with Typhon, and especially getting to know him now on the reaction videos in a different light, that I had some inclination that there was a lot more to him than what we'd projected him to be or who we'd already decided he was based on what he did with the other team and opinions that we've heard from them. If I could go back, I don't know that I would have changed anything with up to this point, plenty of others, but to this point, I wouldn't have because it came to that. And because there were so many twists and turns, I think it was Emily that kind of pointed out, hey, there could be something extra on here that we're not. And we did at one point consider, what if this is aligned so that we do vote him off and there's a cost for voting him off? Because the thought that he might just go back-to-back episodes, it made you think twice that maybe there's something more here. And that was where I was at. I was trying to feel out, is there something more? But he seemed to be so honest and genuine about, I don't say throwing people under the bus, but I will go with being honest. He was honest if you ask him a question, and I didn't see anything that made me feel like he was lying or being deceptive or trying to just get back at them. He was just saying things because that's the way that it went, and that's what it was. And I think we could have used that to our benefit or our advantage a little bit more than we did because we cast him off before he really even got in. So there was some useful information that we'll probably never know, or things would have been done differently if we went another way.
Now, a huge part of the last several episodes is Susan not wanting to participate in challenges, and it seems to bother you more and more each round.
Right.
Why was that?
I thought my assumption was this question was going to come into play because watching it, I feel like it was worse than I really felt. So I want to immediately say I genuinely like Susan from the beginning to the end. The reality is that in private conversations, I enjoy talking to Susan just as much, if not more than anybody else on the team, because we're a little bit older. She talks about drinking here and there. She's out in the middle of the street having a good time. That's the kind of lifestyle I live. I like to have fun. And Emily said it in an early episode. The fact that she's doing this at her age is just really cool. And I wanted to connect with Susan. So there's two parts to the game thing. One, I think I was saying it pretty truthfully. And no matter how it came off, there is that part that if you're going to be in this with us, then you have to take the falls if you're going to be there for the good things. And it just seemed like, especially watching it when she said, I was choosing the teams, that was 100% false, because if anything, I'm begging and pleading that she play and not saying anybody else because I wanted it to be her. So for one part, it was just show that you're part of the team. Go out there, put yourself out there. If it goes bad, it goes bad. We're all in this together anyway. So to this point, we're not planning on voting you off no matter what happens. The other part to that was I was a believer that if I kept putting myself into the games, that at least would give me credit. Even if we lose, they say, well, he's out there playing, he's doing this. As long as I do good, the last game, I didn't even get a point. It was almost embarrassing. Half seconds were going by and I couldn't answer anything. But my thought process was, we need to have her out there, because if she gets to coast through without looking bad, it could look bad that, yeah, I'm putting myself out there, but I'm also losing every time. So why not get rid of this weak link? So what if he's playing and actually participating? He can't win a single game. So you almost like, in a way, you want her to be the person that goes out there. If she wins, great, you're better than me, and I can sit the next one out and now say, hey, you guys did great, go ahead. If she loses, either I'm in the same boat as her, or, well, they're both losing, and at least we have this with this person and this with this person. I've got a fighting chance. So I would say I put her out there just because now she could take the loss. But at the same time, I needed to share that if it was going to be a negative result, it couldn't be me every time, because then it stands out as I'm the weakest link. And what's the sense in keeping somebody who's not winning the games?
I think that's a very valid point, honestly. So I didn't look at that from that perspective either, but that is a good point.
But a lot of times it comes off like I'm just determined to get rid of her. And up until the last moment when Dom and I are talking, I go back and I kind of change everything. And I was heading towards Mary with the thought that there's no chance Susan, luckily, and then we'll get to that in a second, but luckily Susan was going, she said her gut feeling was right. My gut feeling was correct too. And I couldn't allow myself to not do that, assuming that one of the two were going to go with me and Dom, because I felt like we had really good interactions to that point, not knowing how much was going on the other side of it. But it was more like, I know she felt we got away from the plan. I kind of felt that way too. And so it was never a personal thing. You're right. I kept finding ways to be frustrated with the not playing. That was what I became focused on, because I knew we were getting close to becoming individuals. And it was like, it would be unfair for somebody who never played anything to get to that part when the other ones are actually playing. So let's please just see it one time. But I always liked Susan. I always enjoyed talking with her. And Lord knows she kept us on our toes every single night. I never knew it was going to happen that day.
Yeah, especially in this episode, she kept
yes
on her toes. So what really went wrong, do you think, at this tribe swap?
Well, for one, I sit there like a jackass with something that I could have used.
You would have had to send either somebody else away then they can't vote. So
okay.
You could have.
Okay, so the swap.
Tied the vote, yeah.
Okay, so I thought about this all night last night. Again, shoulda, woulda, coulda. The swap was going to be rough on me from the very beginning. Not in a negative way, but because Ashley came in. I feel like she was playing the game really well right from the get-go, which was the equivalent of Rita. But now I'm not with the strong player anymore. That strong player is looking, hey, I'm going to be the strong player over here, and I can come up with plans like you guys were doing. And so I felt like the swap, in hindsight, could have worked really, really well if we win that one challenge, because I would have gotten a chance to know them a little bit better. But when you have Mary and Ashley coming from the same, whether they had a connection or not, and I don't, based on the episodes, I haven't seen anything so strong that led me to believe that Mary was just going to go with Ashley because they'd come from the other team. I didn't feel like that connection, at least to this point, was that where it was going to be, let's attack one of them. I believe what Ashley said, that she didn't like the fact that I said how tight we were and that we don't vote each other off. And then I was specifically telling her we're going to go with Susan. But the reality is that came with the situation of she just refuses to play. And at that point, I had realized that Ashley was such a strong player. I'd seen her multiple times on a winning team. And Mary hadn't done anything that would make me feel like we got to get rid of her immediately. I didn't know. All I had was Susan continues to do this, and it's gotten progressively more bizarre on like the behavior. I don't want to do this. This is going to happen. No, you guys just do it. So I think I was just trying to, at that point, to come up with ways of how are we going to be stronger to get through this next challenge, as opposed to the loyalty to the previous Legends team.
I will say that you held back the information about Susan. It was Dom that actually brought it up first, that Susan wasn't participating in these challenges. Why do you think it fell back on you? Is it because you do come off as such a leader? Do you think that is why?
I think because I'd said it multiple times. I would imagine it had gotten through. So you could go back to Typhon. Typhon was the only person. I think everybody had casted Typhon off so quickly, and I was the only one that said I said, give me a reason for it to not be you. I want you to convince me that I shouldn't vote for you. And we got to talking a little bit, and then he said something to the effect of, I just don't remember Susan playing. And I went into a thing about, yeah, she hasn't played to this point. We're hoping she starts to. When it got to the end there, I truly believe that Typhon had told Susan something to the effect of, yeah, Jason said you don't play, or I'm wondering if they're going to vote for you because I've been told that you don't play. And I'd already mentioned that to Susan. So I'm sure she'd put 2 and 2 together that I'd said that. And by the time Typhon was gone and we're moving on, I probably said it to 3 to 4 different people, including Tabitha, who I just had a private conversation with. So as you said from the beginning of this, it was a consistent bring up to me and a consistent, hey, before you get rid of me, just keep an eye on what's going on. You know what I mean? That's always in my back mind.
Yeah.
But the reality is I should have never stopped being loyal to Susan. That's my confessional of the night right there. That's my shoulda, woulda, coulda all night.
Did Susan almost falling on the sword or wanting to say, vote me out, did that make it even make you want to vote for even more?
It was the almost as easy as when the guy didn't show up, when Kevin didn't show up. It was almost that easy of a thing. The only thing that stopped that was I didn't know what was going on. It was almost more intriguing to say, I sure hope she stays because I got to know what's going on here. But at the same time, that was kind of it for me. And I said it at the very end. It almost felt like she'd given up on it. So if she'd given up on herself playing, she certainly gave up on the loyalty and let's all try to get each other to the end thing. So then, and again, it was never, ever an easy decision. I was worked up all night. Dom and I got off that conversation. I'm like, you idiot. Why did you go with that? You should have done this. You should have done that. And I woke up the next day thinking the same things. So it never became easy. But that night before, if there was one deciding factor, it was that. It was no longer about the game because I lost. So I was no better than somebody that didn't participate. We lost. It came down to that was so weird. And if she did that now, what is she capable of in the future? Or is this part of like a stunt? Is there something more to that? I started to believe it was maybe part of the game. Like this is something she had. And that's where my head was at that time. Like maybe there's more to Susan here than what we realize. And I'm walking right into something by not voting for her. I didn't know. I mean, it genuinely, and maybe that's why I've loved this game so much, confused me that evening.
What did you think when she said that you were the one picking the teams to play in the challenge all the time and she would have played in any of the challenges?
Yeah. So that built up she has definitely turned on me. And I don't remember I think it was Dom right from the get-go where he was like, I don't even think Susan's in with us anymore because she was saying something about you pick the teams. And then somebody else had mentioned it. And that goes back to I've rewatched it. I've thought about it. Other than the one time with Riazzo where I said, hey, I think you can do it, bud. I think you can do it. And when Emily first at one point said that she was going to be in the game, I said, let's go, Emily, let's go. Something to that effect. But outside of that, I don't remember at any point swaying anybody, hey, it's your turn to play or you need to play. In fact, there were times I'm biting my tongue saying, come on, Susan, come on. And delay myself from saying anything in the hopes that she says it. So if I'm incorrect, I'm sure the podcast will say, here's when he said it, and they'll let me know that I'm goofing. But I don't recall a single time where I told any person that they should play or they're up.
I will say that I don't think that's true. I think Susan was just trying to put the target on you in that
And so when
situation.
I started hearing that, it was like, okay, she's already turned on me. I have to sway the vote. I have to take something away from her. And what I have is what happened last night. Like it's at that point, the realization hit that it's going to be me or it's going to be her. That was my opinion at that time.
Unfortunately, I'm getting low on time. So last question. What is the biggest lesson you learned playing this game in the game sense?
That the reality is it is a game. And I think that you came up with a cast of great people. I loved every one of them. And it seemed like they're all great television characters. But at the end of the day, it's a game. And no matter what, whether the game is out in the wilderness, online, in an athletic event, whatever it is, you can only have so much trust in somebody when the time comes that you have an opportunity to win and be the champion of something and say, I'm going to compete, and I'm going to be the winner of what I came here to do. Or I'm going to be loyal to somebody that I may or may not ever see again, may not have a relationship with down the road, or know for the rest of my life. I think when it was all said and done, we're all going to have regrets, and we're all going to have things like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I watched some of them and thought to myself, what the hell were you thinking, or where did that come from? But for me, that's been the best part of it, is rewatching this and knowing that I made some memories with great people. I don't think there was anybody out to hurt anyone in a negative way. It was all part of a game, and I am truly blessed that I got to be a part of it. And I thank you, and I appreciate it. We had a heck of a team you put together. Why you had to change it when you did, I'll never know the answer to that. But the lesson is just have fun with these things and know that nothing's personal. We're all just having a good time and enjoying a game that's meant to be entertaining. And I know that it's been that. So thank you.
Now, we've already talked about it, so I know one day you're probably going to hopefully see Jason play another game. I don't know when that day will be, whenever it works out for him. But for now, any quick final thoughts?
That's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you to the viewers. Thank you to the crew. Nick, a special thank you to you, man. I knew from the very beginning this was going to be awesome. Took me out of my comfort zone, flipped me on my head a few times, made me think twice about things, and I just genuinely enjoyed every minute. It's been an honor. I can't wait to see how it all plays itself out. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jason. You were a great character, and I do hope we see you again someday.
Appreciate it, brother. Have a good night.